Mother Jones played a significant role in the eventual demise of child labor and leadership skills throughout the feminist community. She led child labor protest marches across the U.S. to the nation's capital, helped display the urgency and terror of child labor and the effects it had on them, as well as leading feminist movements to protect the rights of women and children. Mother Jones' leadership is shown through her many acts of child labor marches, in which she continued to do until a change was made for the good of not only the mine workers, but the children as well. Mary Harris Jones, also known as Mother Jones, was born on August 1, 1837, to past generations of freedom fighters in Cork, Ireland. Jones was known as the white-haired Mother Jones of the labor movement from 1880 through the early 1920s. She was best known for her struggles to win decent living and working conditions for the United Mine Workers, and her participation in the Haymarket demonstration for the 8-hour day movement in Chicago in 1886. In 1790, the Industrial Revolution became the new way of life. Factories and mills were going up all across the North, and because of this, the demand for workers increased drastically. To add on to that, common class citizens were fighting for simple factory, low-class jobs with poor conditions and wages. But because of the new influx of immigrants and the thriving factory industry, the demand for jobs increased dramatically, which meant that the poor and homeless class increased as well. While working as a dressmaker, Jones developed an interest in improving the conditions of laborers. After witnessing the disparity between the lifestyle of the aristocrats of Chicago and those who were jobless and poor walking the streets. By 1880, she said in the autobiography of Mother Jones, "I became wholly engrossed in the labor movement. In all the great industrial centers, the working class was a rebellion. The enormous immigration from Europe crowded the slums, forced down wages, and threatened to destroy the standard of living fought for by American working men." Children had been servants and apprentices throughout most of human history. Child labor reached new extremes during the Industrial Revolution. Children often worked long hours in dangerous factory conditions for very little money. Children were useful as laborers because their size allowed them to move in small spaces in factories or mines where adults couldn't fit. Children were easier to manage and control, and perhaps most importantly, children could be paid less than adults. Child laborers often worked to help support their families, but were forced to forego an education. Many children of all ages were forced to work in factories and mills from early morning until late nights, sometimes overnight if it was necessary. Factory operators and owners thought that it was a great idea to use children in their establishments because they would be able to fit into hard-to-reach places if it needed repairs. Sadly, many children died while doing these dangerous tasks. Factory or mill all across the North was little boys and girls with deformities caused by work-related injuries, the oldest being 15 and the youngest being a newborn that has to come to work with their mother. The first step to improving conditions was in 1833 with the Factory Act passed by Parliament. This limited the amount of hours children of certain ages could work. Specifically, children 9 to 13 years of age were only allowed to work 8 hours a day. Those 14 to 18 years of age could not work more than 12 hours a day. Children under 9 were not allowed to work at all. Also, the children were to attend school for no less than 2 hours during the day. Perhaps the most important part of this act was the part that said the government would appoint officials to make sure the act was carried out and complied with. Later in the early 20th century, activists went even further to protect children's rights in labor. The Knights of Labor began as a secret society of tailors in Philadelphia in 1869. The organization grew slowly during the hard years of the 1870s, but worker militancy rose toward the end of the decade, especially after the Great Railroad Strike of 1877, and the Knights' membership rose with it. Grand Master Workman Terence V. Powderly took office in 1879, and under his leadership, the Knights flourished. By 1886, the group had 700,000 members. Powderly dispensed with the earlier rules of secrecy and committed the organization to seeking the 8-hour day abolition of child labor, equal pay for equal work, and political reforms including the graduated income tax. On September 21, 1912, Mother Jones led a march with coal miners' children. On February 12th, she was arrested while protesting the conditions in the strike area. She was arrested and convicted in a military court of conspiring to commit murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. She was at least 68 years old and suffered from pneumonia. However, newly elected Governor Henry D. Hatfield pardoned her. On April 14th, Hatfield issued settlement terms for the strike, including a 9-hour workday, the right to shop in stores other than those owned by the company, the right to elect union check wagemen, and the elimination of discrimination against union miners. He ordered striking miners on April 25th to accept his terms or face deportation from the state. While Paint Creek miners accepted the contract, Cabin Creek miners remained on strike. The cemetery and its monument were declared a National Historic Site in 1972. As part of the renovation, the statues will be cleaned and plaques upgraded. A local bricklayers union will donate $15,000 worth of labor to rework the graveyard's entrance, and plans are afoot to create a local Mother Jones Museum. Mother Jones died 7 months after her final public address on her 93rd birthday. She called it her 100th, on November 30th, 1930. She was buried in the Union Miners Cemetery in Mount Olive, Illinois, where a monument was erected as a memorial to coal miners who had lost their lives during riots associated with strikes. Jones had requested she be buried near those who had sacrificed their lives and believed that Illinois was the best organized state in America. A Mary Harris Mother Jones historical marker shows her place of death at Burgess Farm on Powder Mills and Riggs Road in Adelphi, Maryland. This place is significant because it's where Mother Jones spent the last 2 years of her life. On the marker, Mother Jones is called the Grand Old Champion of Labor.